Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, January 13th. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. President Trump made history today as the first U.S. president to be impeached twice. 10 House Republicans joined Democrats in voting to impeach for incitement of insurrection, 1 week to the day after a violent mob took over the Capitol. Nadia Romero is in Washington to explain what happens next.
Thousands of armed troops keep guard both outside and inside the Capitol, all to protect lawmakers on a historic day, the second impeachment of President Donald Trump.
We are debating this historic measure at an actual crime scene, and we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the President of the United States.
Exactly 1 week after the deadly siege on the Capitol, a bipartisan majority in the House impeached President Trump on one count, inciting an insurrection.
The President of the United States incited this insurrection, this armed rebellion against our common country.
I cannot think of a more petty, vindictive, and gratuitous act than to impeach an already defeated president a week before he is to leave office.
President Trump denied responsibility for the riot.
Statement from the president. I urge that there must be no violence, no lawbreaking, no vandalism of any kind. This is not what I stand for.
Unlike President Trump's first impeachment in 2019, this time a handful of Republicans voted with Democrats to impeach.
With a heavy heart and clear resolve, I will vote yes on these articles of impeachment.
Yet most House Republicans argue that impeachment will ultimately do more harm than good.
A vote to impeach will further fan the flames of partisan division.
Although the House has the power to impeach, it's the Senate that holds a trial and can ultimately remove Trump from the presidency and potentially bar him from ever seeking office again. In Washington, Nadia Romero, KPBS News.
President Trump has made no formal comment on impeachment. However, he shared a new video from the White House Twitter account denouncing the actions he was charged with inciting.
America is a nation of laws. Those who engaged in the attacks last week will be brought to justice. Now I am asking everyone who has ever believed in our agenda to be thinking of ways to ease tensions, calm tempers, and help to promote peace in our country.
Trump also called out the, quote, unprecedented assault on free speech, apparently referencing his own ban from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, and the shutdown of the conservative social media site Parler. Law enforcement locally and across the state are on alert for any possible demonstrations in the days ahead. Today, local state Senator Tony Atkins joined Governor Newsom in releasing a statement calling for cooperation to ensure the safety at the state capitol and those who work there. They have asked that all measures be taken to protect the Capitol. The FBI is warning all 50 state capitals to be on alert for armed protests as Inauguration Day nears. San Diego County reached another grim milestone in the pandemic. Today, we crossed 200,000 COVID-19 cases, just over a month after we hit the 100,000 mark. More than 3,200 new cases and 54 deaths were reported less than 24 hours after the CDC recommended that people aged 65 and older and those with pre-existing conditions should be eligible to get vaccinated now. Governor Newsom agreed. KPBS reporter John Carroll explains why county officials say that's just not possible yet.
The governor informed Californians of his decision today on Twitter.
I've seen everybody 65 and over, about 6.6 million Californians. We're now pulling into the tier to make available vaccines.
The problem, county officials say, is there isn't nearly enough vaccine in the county to vaccinate all those folks. At today's news conference, Supervisor Nathan Fletcher spelled out the numbers. The county is still working through the more than 600,000 healthcare workers in the county. Add in residents 65 and older, about 500,000, and that brings you to more than 1 million people being told they're now eligible to get a vaccine. Fletcher says the county only has about 200,000 doses on hand.
The vaccines have simply not arrived in significant quantities to be able to administer to those. We expect more vaccines to arrive soon, but we don't know when, and we don't know how many. We don't know which ones.
Fletcher says the county is doing everything humanly possible to move the distribution and delivery of vaccines in the most efficient way. He says the county is spending $100 million in that effort, though he says we haven't gotten a dime from either the state or federal government to help. To prepare for the time when more vaccine arrives, Fletcher says the county is working to put in the infrastructure to make things go quickly.
Our plan is in early February to open our second vaccine superstation in the South Bay area. In early February, and then also in February to open similar type functions in East County and North County.
Fletcher says the county is also working on opening up more pods, smaller vaccine distribution centers, like this one that opened in Coronado today. Like the Superstation at Petco Park, only healthcare workers are being vaccinated here for now. So even though the capacity to distribute more vaccines is being built out, I asked how the county can proceed when it's in the dark about how many doses of vaccine it's going to get.
The state doesn't make the vaccines, and so there's a series of aspects of things that are just out of folks' control. But there is regular communication.
Fletcher says the goal is to have 70% of county residents vaccinated by the end of June, but for that to happen, he says everything will have to go perfectly, because to get there, 2 doses for everyone will require more than 3.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. John Carroll, KPBS News.
You may be able to go to your local drugstore to get a COVID-19 vaccine in the near future. KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer explains the details.
The National Association of Chain Drugstores is eager to get vaccines into 40,000 pharmacy locations across the United States. NACDS President and CEO Stephen Anderson says effective vaccine rollout is dependent upon pharmacy help, as 90% of Americans live within 5 miles of a pharmacy.
Based on conservative assumptions, pharmacies have the capacity to meet the demand for 100 million vaccine doses in just 1 month, when that level of the vaccine supply is available.
Pharmacy chains Walgreens and CVS are currently providing the first phase of vaccines at long-term care facilities, while healthcare workers are also being vaccinated as part of Phase 1A. But a group of 19 pharmacy chains across the U.S. could start to receive some quantity of COVID-19 vaccines at their brick-and-mortar locations starting tomorrow, and California just approved anyone 65 or older to receive the COVID-19 vaccine.
Pharmacies that are participating with the state will receive their notice in their first allocation of the transfer of the vaccine from that state. Moving forward, transfers can occur each week, with the transfer occurring to pharmacies on Thursdays moving forward.
To ensure proper tracking of the COVID-19 vaccines, pharmacies will have between 24 to 72 hours to upload vaccine supply and administration data, depending on their state.
The orders are going through the VTrack system by CDC, and actually the state and the pharmacies are all working together to get the population vaccinated. And all the orders that are going through that system are actually reviewed and approved by Operation Warp Speed.
California will begin rolling out a new system next week to allow people to register for notifications regarding vaccine eligibility. The key now is increasing vaccine supply in the U.S. That may happen around the beginning of February if the 1-dose Johnson & Johnson shot receives emergency use authorization. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
And we are following all of the latest developments on the vaccine rollout for you at kpbs.org. Click on the Tracking COVID tab on our homepage, then the new tab, Vaccines. You'll find links to the county's vaccination sites and information on who is eligible for a shot now. Today, the San Diego Foundation announced it would be giving out $300,000 to small businesses from the Black, Latino, and Asian communities. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler tells us that these grants are targeting the disproportionate impact the pandemic has had on these communities.
The money comes from the Foundation's COVID-19 Response Fund, which has so far raised $64 million to support San Diegans during the pandemic. The Foundation has already delivered $54 million in grants.
The pandemic has not affected all of us evenly. Under-resourced communities in San Diego County have been disproportionately afflicted by COVID-19. With the recent surge in coronavirus cases and hospitalizations in our county, the needs of San Diegans are continuing to grow.
The $300,000 will be distributed evenly between the three groups: the San Diego Black Chamber of Commerce, the Local Initiative Support Corporation San Diego, and the Asian Business Association of San Diego. The leaders of the chosen organizations don't feel as if the money will in any way dull the disproportionate impact the pandemic has had on minority communities, but will help keep some of these businesses that serve those communities afloat.
Most impacted are Black restaurant owners, hair salons, barbershop, neighborhood stores, childcare, and nonprofits that serve the Black community. So the challenge today is that it's the same challenge that it's been for decades. Many underrepresented businesses are challenged by cash flow on a good day, and over the last 10 months, it's been almost non-existent.
The organizations will be in charge of distributing the grants to small businesses and groups in their own communities. Applications for these grants are opening at the same time that a new round of applications for small business assistance from the county is reaching its deadline, meaning that businesses and groups can have multiple opportunities in the next few weeks to secure money to help them through the latest round of public health closures. Max Rivlin-Nadler, KPBS News.
The family of 39-year-old Maya Miliete says she has been missing since Friday from her home near Mount Miguel Park in Chula Vista. Her family says she is 5 foot 2 inches tall, weighs 105 pounds, and has a tattoo on her wrist. Friends organized 2 search efforts in hope of finding her safe.
Anyone out there probably have seen her or maybe know where she is. I mean, well, I'm begging and begging and begging you, please let us know she's okay.
Her family says following a fight with her husband, Maya left with just her ID, possibly her phone, and her credit card, which has not been used after a fight. She did not show up to work or her daughter's birthday on Sunday. Anyone who has seen her or has information on her whereabouts is urged to contact the Chula Vista Police Department. Uber and Lyft drivers, along with labor unions, filed a lawsuit in the California Supreme Court challenging the constitutionality of Prop 22. KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler says delivery drivers here in San Diego are already feeling its impacts.
Last month, delivery drivers at a Vons in San Diego were called in for a meeting with managers. These drivers had been working serious hours during the pandemic, delivering groceries in refrigerated trucks to older people and people with kids stuck at home. The drivers thought maybe they were getting a bonus or a raise after a difficult year. Instead, they were told their jobs were being eliminated and that they were going to be replaced by third-party gig workers at the end of February. One of those workers was 27-year-old Matthew, who did not want his full name or his voice used in this story because he's still employed by Vons, which is owned by Albertsons. Matthew told us he struggled to tell his mom and disabled father for a few days that the person who had been supporting the household would be laid off in the middle of a pandemic. Orly LaBelle is a labor law professor at the University of San Diego.
It's clearly a monetary incentive. That in the end, all of these corporations are acting out of bottom line cost cutting. And I think what's happening is that Albertsons has decided that a deal with, I believe, Grubhub will be more efficient in terms of their liabilities and in terms of their costs of delivery.
She said businesses like grocery stores are now emboldened to use gig workers after the passage of Proposition 22, which was passed by nearly 60% of California voters in November, after gig economy companies spent over $200 million supporting it. The proposition provided a carve-out from several state court rulings and a new state law that made companies like Uber, Lyft, or DoorDash hire many of the people that found full-time work through their apps. Instead, transportation-based companies are now exempted from having to do that, saving them millions of dollars.
If they had to fully employ or deem their delivery people employees, all of them, it would increase costs in such a way that they would maybe fold and leave California. That was their claim.
But Albertsons contends Prop 22 had nothing to do with the changes it had made to its business model. In a statement, it told KPBS that the decision would allow the company to compete in the growing home delivery market more effectively. Lobel thinks it's irrelevant whether Albertsons chalks up the change to Prop 22, because the whole industry is now embracing the model.
With delivery, there is an efficiency argument, what we've seen with companies like Grubhub and Instacart, where the same person who's working through this gig is then serving both restaurants and delivering from different grocery stores. And in this way, they can divide their hours and their time and their kind of human energy into many more compartmentalized or many more tasks that they're filling throughout the day.
Advocates for Prop 22 say for delivery and transportation services, it provides flexibility for workers who might not be looking for a full-time job or want to make their own schedules. But union leaders like the United Food and Commercial Workers Local 135 Chief Todd Walters thinks this will just lead to the erasure of good-paying jobs.
Every employer in the state of California is looking at this and drooling over this because these app-based drivers, the companies are not paying unemployment, they're not paying disability, they're not paying Social Security, they're not paying the taxes. The independent contractor pays for that. And you look at how much right now we rely on unemployment and state disability because of COVID. Imagine the more companies that go to independent contractors, those social networks are going to get hit really hard.
Matthew, the Vons driver, was making $18 an hour over 2 years on the job. Vons did offer to reassign him to a fulfillment center in Irvine. He says he won't be taking them up on that and couldn't understand why the company was letting him go at a time when its profits have been shooting up. He says that with 13 deliveries a day, he hasn't had time to think about what he'll do when he becomes unemployed, when the country will still be in the midst of a financially punishing pandemic. Max Ruland-Adler, KPBS News.
The U.S.-Mexico border has been closed to all non-essential travel since March because of the pandemic. Officials have extended the closure each month, and now those restrictions will continue through February 21st. Any tourists seeking or border crossing visas to cross into the U.S. will not be allowed. The San Ysidro Chamber of Commerce says businesses have been deeply affected by the closure. It says 125 out of about 800 businesses have been forced to close permanently. Public transit in San Diego is moving to a new fare collection system meant to be more flexible and user-friendly. But KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says that change comes with a cost.
The new system, called Pronto, includes a feature called fare capping. Passengers can pay one-way fares on the bus and trolley, and if those fares add up to the equivalent of a day pass, their fare is capped, and the rest of the day's rides are free. Same goes for a monthly pass. Metropolitan Transit System CEO Sharon Cooney says it takes the guesswork out of calculating your best fare.
It allows people to just basically get the best fare available to them without even thinking twice about it.
But providing regular riders with this savings means the system will likely see revenue drop between $2 and $5 million. To offset these losses, MTS is considering raising one-way fares from $2.50 to $2.75. At a public outreach webinar on Tuesday, several people pushed back against that proposal, noting fares were last raised only 16 months ago, and many transit riders are struggling struggling under the pandemic. Hassan Ikrada, who heads the Regional Transportation Planning Agency, SANDAG, insisted the fare hike was not a done deal.
This is not about going to the board and asking for fare increase. It is about a new fare system that's going to create a revenue gap that we need to fill somehow. And the most unlikely option would be a fare increase.
What are the likelier options? Ikrada didn't say. As it currently stands, though, MTS board members are scheduled to vote on the fare change next month. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria is delivering his first State of the City address tonight. The city faces many challenges stemming from the pandemic and years of budget mismanagement. Gloria is outlining his plans to move San Diego forward in a virtual address streamed live on City TV.
Our top story continues to be the warming trend on the way. Very warm for the second half of this week. Temperatures will be rivaling records here. We'll see some 80s and perhaps some 90s. There'll be some periods of gusty winds out of the northeast, so the offshore flows with us. It gets a little stronger later in the week, and we can see the strongest winds here into Saturday. Dry weather will be with us through the weekend. Looking at temperatures tonight, we're down to 41 in Oceanside. San Diego's 49, El Cajon 47, Ramona's around 40, Borrego Springs 44, Mount Laguna, cool spot here, down into the lower 30s. Our weather on Thursday, it'll be warm and dry. Temperatures running 5 to 15 degrees above average, and there'll be some gusty winds blowing offshore. Temperatures rising to the upper 70s in Oceanside and San Diego. Ramona's in the mid-80s and El Cajon's in the mid-80s too. Borrego Springs up to 86 and Campos at 79. As we check in on Friday, of course it's dry. Record high temperatures will be challenged, and with some gusty winds, the fire potential will be going up. But we could be one of the cities here that will be into a record territory. Here's our forecast. Temperatures climbing to the upper 70s Thursday. Friday, we're up to 80, challenging record highs into Saturday. Over the weekend, though, temperatures will step down just a little bit. Take a look at these temperatures in the inland sections. Very warm, we're in the mid-80s Thursday, Friday, and right into Saturday. Temperatures start to back off a little bit here on Sunday and Monday. And here in the mountains, look at these temperatures. Of course, we'll have some wind to contend with here. Temperatures will start to cool off on Monday, and in the deserts, rivaling records for the end of the week. It looks like a warm weekend with sunshine. And for KPBS News, meteorologist Mark Mancuso.
Americans are reacting to the impeachment. So too the local congressional representatives who were part of the impeachment vote and the deadly rioting inside the Capitol. Here's KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman.
The facts are clear. The evidence of Trump's insurrection overwhelming.
Congressman Mike Levin joined fellow Democrats representing San Diego County in supporting the president's impeachment.
We had a decision to make today, each of us that took the oath of office, whether or not we would stand against domestic terrorism and the incitement of insurrection against the Capitol of the United States, or whether we would look the other way. And history will remember what we did today.
New Congresswoman and Democrat Sarah Jacobs also spoke on the House floor supporting impeachment.
A violent mob threatened our lives in this chamber and almost succeeded, incited by the president who broadcasted lies about the outcome of our election.
Jacobs says we cannot heal our nation without first holding those responsible for the Capitol attack accountable.
If you don't have the highest level of accountability the first time an incident like this happens, you're more likely to have incidences of violence in the future.
Democratic Congressman Scott Peters says the president and his lies about election fraud are responsible for the violence, but he wishes that Trump would resign or that his cabinet use the 25th Amendment.
I'm not happy about having to do this, but the first thing I promised when I go to Congress is I raise my right hand and say I'm going to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that's what we're doing today. So I hate that we have to do this. I hadn't planned on it, but I think it's absolutely in this condition, under these circumstances, was the right thing to do.
10 Republicans supported impeachment, but GOP Congressman Darrell Issa from the East County was not one of them. He believes that impeaching the president will further divide people.
What's being debated is whether with 167 hours left until he leaves office, is he a clear and present danger? And he clearly isn't. The president has acted substantially the same for 4 years. He has rallied his base.
Levin, Peters, and Jacobs all said they did not agree with Issa's comments. Democratic Congressman Juan Vargas also voted to impeach the president, urging in a statement for Senate leadership to act in the best interest of the American people, saying that keeping Trump in office is a threat to our national security and that he must be removed immediately.
One of the reasons I preferred resignation by the president or the 25th Amendment is that now we have to devote part of the Biden presidency to cleaning up the mess of Donald Trump.
Peters, Jacobs, and Levin all said that they heard overwhelmingly from constituents that they should support the president's impeachment. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Tomcat Courtney, a blues musician who spent decades playing in San Diego, has died at the age of 91.
You know the sun is going down, city lights coming on all over town. I can't find my baby, but I know she's somewhere in this town.
That was him performing at KPBS in 2013 ahead of the San Diego Music Awards. The following year, he received a Lifetime Achievement statue. Tomcat Courtney was born in Texas and then relocated to California in the 1960s. He settled here in San Diego in 1971. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley. And by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.